stadium lights with 3 big birds before halftime. My heart racing like it's 4th and 5 on a Midwest Saturday.
Welcome back to another episode of the Mizzou Storytellers podcast. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Nikki. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. This has been a week.
Oh,
and
it has.
I'm glad we're here. Spend some time in the studio, and we've got a great guest.
We have a fantastic guest.
One that I wasn't sure we'd ever get in here.
I know. I'm excited for them to hear from them.
Yeah, and before we bring in our guest, we kind of have to acknowledge what's happened this week with Desiree Reed-Francois leaving Mizzou for the athletic director position in Arizona. That we're recording this on Thursday, just to be, candid about the timeline here, because we don't know when you're listening to this. So that happened earlier this week. It's really not something we plan to discuss on the podcast today, but we can't completely ignore it. Desiree was our first guest here in the studio 6 weeks ago, I think. Yep. We had a great conversation with her. It was a lot of fun. We're both grateful to have the opportunity to work for her and work with her, and obviously we wish her and Josh, her family, the best out in Tucson. But we have great confidence in President Choi and our campus leadership, and they're going to go out and find the next outstanding leader for our department, just like they did, when they hired Desiree 3 years ago. So, Nikki, I don't think there's anything more we really need to say on that topic today. I know people are curious; they want to know what happens next for Mizzou. We are in a great position here. There is tremendous momentum in our department across our campus, but especially in athletics. We considered maybe not recording this week, maybe earlier in the week, but I just thought it was best. We thought it was best to move forward. The show must go on, so why stop now?
Why stop now? So,
Yeah.
I think with that, let's just get into our guest.
Yeah, let's just get to it.
She is smart, selfless, motivated. She is a destroyer of complacency and foolishness, a wife, mother, daughter, and friend, a wizard with a racket, the Morganizer, the Associate Athletic Director of Administration. She is Morgan Domenick, and this is her story.
Wow,
Welcome to the podcast.
That's quite the intro, Nikki.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You wear all the hats.
Welcome to Mizzou Storytellers. I never thought we'd see the day.
I am so excited. I also never thought we would see this day.
We just planned to talk about her all the time, like she was this mythic creature over in Mizzou Arena, and now she's here.
Morgan has said on multiple occasions that Dave and I bully her on this podcast, but really we just mention her so that way she'll come on. And finally,
it's peer pressure. That's all it's
that
been.
is what it is, peer pressure.
It finally worked after, 6 weeks, 7 weeks?
6 weeks, yes. And you're here.
We're here.
Let's start with what your role is at Mizzou. Associate Athletic Director of Administration. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique role, but it's one that I love. I get the opportunity to work with almost every department at Mizzou, which was really awesome. I lead a lot of our project management, strategic planning, and really being the communications liaison between the Director of Athletics and the rest of our exec staff, moving projects forward and making sure that our core values and vision are aligned and executed on a daily basis.
I like to call her the ultimate insider because you are very internal. Your role is, if you are just a casual fan of Mizzou Athletics, you may not know what you do or who you are necessarily, and I think that's the way you like it.
I do like it. You're giving away my secrets.
We are uncovering everything today.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's such a cool role and it's such an important one, and one that I think sometimes the most important ones are the ones that maybe we aren't aware of as much. But it's to see how you have an inside view of how everything works, and you have a big say in how everything works, and and you do a great job.
I think you're giving me too much credit.
That's why we do this
Appreciate it.
podcast, so that way we can uncover. We're turning all the stones in the department to really uncover all of the people. So
You are. I pushed back on this podcast, but I'm here.
I'm
here. Doing it.
Yeah. You're not from Missouri. You grew up in Florida, so you're an only child. So talk about growing up in Florida, your parents. I have gotten to know your parents. I love them very much. So talk about Florida, your parents, and then we'll get into tennis because that's a big
Yeah.
part of your life.
So moved to Florida when I was about a year and a half. Obviously don't remember that move. So my whole childhood I grew up in Florida. My mom is a dentist. My dad worked on the criminal justice side. And, what was cool about my childhood is my dad was mostly retired for the majority of my childhood. So he got to spend a lot of time with me growing up. taking me to school every day, driving me to tennis practice. Life in Florida is much different than it is in Missouri. I grew up right on the beach, so if I wasn't on the tennis court or at school, like that's where you could find me always. That's what we did for fun there. So it was a great childhood, great state, and I'm appreciative for the way that I grew up, and it gave me an appreciation for where I am now.
What part of Florida?
St. Petersburg.
Okay.
Yep. Right on the beach, but on the, I guess, west coast of the peninsula.
Lovely place.
Yes, lovely place.
Let's talk tennis. When did you first pick up a tennis racket?
I was 4 years old, and neither of my parents played tennis, so kind of a random sport for my family, but I went to a birthday party when I was 4 and really enjoyed it, and then asked my parents, was begging my parents every day after that birthday party for them to let me play tennis, and they finally signed me up for tennis lessons once a week on Saturday mornings, and they realized I had a little bit of coordination, and kind of just took off from there.
I read an article from 2005.
Oh gosh.
And it talks about how your parents didn't play tennis, but how you got into it. And just, it was interesting because, again, I feel like, I'm not a parent yet, but your kids sometimes follow your interests. And so for your parents to be like, sure, we know nothing about this sport, but we're really going to fully invest.
Yeah.
And it said that at 8 years old, you were serving at 78 miles an hour. So
Yeah.
you seem to have a natural ability.
I don't know about I would say it's a sport that takes a lot of work, and I think that I played college tennis because I was willing to outwork people, not necessarily because I had all of the athletic talent in the world. I went to that same tournament when I was 7, and nationals were in San Diego, and I remember getting absolutely throttled, lost 0-0 in 10 minutes, and my family, we always had this thing of if I lost early in a tournament, we called it zoo time, because after this tournament, I lost first round and we were in San Diego, so we went to the zoo, right? I was 7 years old, and so after that, it kind of lived on as zoo time every time I got knocked out of a tournament early. But I think from that I learned okay, it takes a lot more if I want to actually be good at this and compete on a national level. So then I started playing a lot more and investing many more hours into the sport. So it was a good lesson.
Which I think for those of us that know you, your ability to work hard, you're just one of the hardest working people that I've ever met. And so I think from a young age, it says a lot that at 8 years old, you're I don't want to lose, and I know I need to work hard. And then it obviously carried through, and you did play at Boise State, which we'll get into. But at 8 years old, a kid would usually be I don't want to invest my time in this, but you were no, I want to do this.
Well, it's fun when you're a little kid still. I think of Will Matter and his basketball games, right? It's still so fun at that age, and you want to just be playing sports and running around, and I think that's how I thought of it, and I also didn't want to lose, so that's motivation.
Is there anything tied between playing an individual sport and being an only child? We're psychoanalyzing
No,
Morgan here. Golf or tennis, you think of some great golfers or tennis players, and it's different than being on a team.
It's very fair. I think it definitely provided me with a lot of opportunities I don't otherwise think I would have had if I had a sibling. So I'm grateful in that respect. But you also think of it takes 2 people to play tennis. So if there was another one of me, I probably could have trained with my sibling. So I don't know. But you definitely have to learn how to be mentally tough out there. A lot of other sports, right? You're by yourself. So you're kind of isolated, making decisions on your own. And you can't be coached in the middle of matches at that level. You can at the college level, but not in juniors. So you're really out there making decisions on your own and hoping for the best and hoping that your training paid off.
I was going to say, what's the biggest lesson lessons that tennis has taught you?
Yeah, I would say adaptability. Things aren't always going well out there, right? And sometimes your opponent's playing really well, and that can be in anything. You have to adjust what you're doing to counteract it. You can't just keep getting beat playing the way that you're playing, right? So you have to adjust. I would say belief in yourself. That goes back to being isolated out there by yourself. I've got to make the decision of what I'm going to do next. I can't rely on somebody else to make that decision for me. And then the one I learned in college honestly ended up being teamwork and the value of having people on your side really cheering for you. I had never experienced that until I got to college, and it really changed the sport for me. I saw it in a different light.
Mm-hmm.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Shelter Insurance. Ranked number 1 in customer satisfaction for auto insurance in the Central Region by J.D. Power 5 out of the last 6 years. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
You got to travel, which is really cool and I think a unique experience. So where's your favorite place that you got to travel when you were growing up for tennis?
I thought this question might come up.
I think I know the answer, but
Do you? I did. I got to go to a lot of really cool places. My favorite one, I played in El Salvador at an ITF tournament. This was my first ITF tournament growing up, and I ended up doing super well in this tournament, but I took back like a great appreciation for what we have here in the States and like a true belief that I was a good tennis player and like could compete on a international scale, right? This was my first international tournament, really like leaving the country, going up against the rest of the world and like seeing what I was made of. And so that was a good experience for me and probably one of my favorites.
I thought you were going to say your trip to India.
Oh, yeah. Eye-opening as well. Just different, right? Like I had never experienced some of the things that I experienced in India, and it was a great place, like unbelievable culture, really awesome experience. But I think there were others where I either did better, didn't maybe lose so early, or just got to see things through a different lens.
I think that I want to talk on like your experience in high school. I go to high school, like how it was so different from other kids and how like you were traveling and maybe missing school. And so what was that like? And do you look back now and, you miss maybe a prom or a school dance or you're missing football games and stuff like that, but you obviously talk very highly of the opportunities that you had. So maybe when you're 16, it's like, this sucks, I'm missing the football game. But now looking back, you went to all these cool places. What was it like maybe when you were 16, but also now looking back, like how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Nikki. I think my 16-year-old self was feeling unsure of what I wanted to be doing, right? Like I was missing a week of school a month, and like awesome of my high school to allow me to do that, but still get my degree and be part of the student body and doing all of the regular things. But I was missing football games, I was missing baseball games, I was missing like all the regular interactions that high school kids do on a daily basis. But at the same time, I was getting to experience all these really great things. I think when I was 16, like that was when the pivotal moment or decision was made of like, okay, I'm either going to commit to this like full time on the road, like throw myself into it, which means like probably not going to college right away, or I'm going to make the decision that, hey, I need to like put myself out there to college coaches and probably take it a different direction, which means like probably not going to travel internationally as much anymore, play some more local national tournaments, and try to get noticed by these coaches that way. So ultimately, you know what the decision was, right? I decided to step away from the pro tour and really focused on getting my national ranking back up, getting noticed by college coaches. And it was a great decision. I had a great experience as a student athlete.
What was your national ranking before or around that time?
Or
really, I guess like, the highest point it was at.
So my pro ranking was like around 900. That was what I was like primarily focused on, and then came back, and I know you've seen the video. So I'm dropping that in there. But yeah, so I made like a recruiting video as people did back in 2010.
Which we're pausing. It's not bad. So if you ever want, you just search Morgan and this video comes up. It's not, I'm like all here for the recruiting video. What gets me is it's like a black and white video and then only the yellows and like the tennis
there's
balls.
There's no sound.
There's no sound. And the tennis ball is the only thing in color. And that's what I'm confused as to why that was the style choice.
You know, this was like a really last minute decision and like a friend of mine could make videos and we were like, okay, just make something and like put it on the internet. It was more about the tennis, less about the video.
Which is probably why the tennis ball was the only thing in color.
Well, you did something right at Shorecrest High School. That was the name of your high school, correct? Because they did induct you into their Hall of Fame in 2018. We have photos here of you giving your speech.
Yes.
So you went back?
I went back. I was living in Syracuse at the time.
Were you a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Oh, I don't know what that means, Dave.
Was it your first year eligible? Were you elected, or did you have to wait a
know.
few years?
I don't know the answer to that.
And also, was it like Morgan weekend, or were there like other people?
Oh, no. There was like 3 of us, I believe. Yeah. It was a great weekend. We went back, and obviously I got to see my parents and have that ceremony. And some of my friends from high school have since moved away, but some of their parents still live there, so they came to the ceremony. And I'm grateful for Shorecrest and all that they've done for me, and it was a great honor to have been inducted.
Hall of Famer.
A Hall of Famer.
That's incredible. I don't think Blair DeBoard's in his Hall of Fame, is he?
I don't know, but
didn't
we'll have
come
to
up.
ask him.
Everything
I
else
should have
did.
put it in your
Blair
intro.
is probably in his Hall of Fame.
Oh,
If
I'm
not,
sure
this
he
is
would
a
have mentioned it. He
shout-out.
was in here for about 3 hours for his episode.
Recruiting process, you go to Boise State, which is, in case anyone's wondering, not close to Florida. So what does that look like when you're, looking at, okay, I want to go to college. Do you want to stay in Florida? Do you want to get away? Like, what was your process like, and how did you determine Boise State was for you?
Yeah, I loved the weather in Florida. So in my mind, I was like, well, I want to be somewhere like Florida, but I don't necessarily want to be in Florida. So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to California. In fact, like we had gone out to California and like looked at a bunch of schools unofficially. I had other official visits to some California schools, like was already committed to one of them. And my parents were like, Boise State keeps reaching out. They're like a top 30 program. You don't have to go there. Just why don't you take the visit? Like you have one left. Just take the visit and see how you feel about it. And I was like, I'll go on the visit, but like I'm not moving to Idaho.
What do they have, potatoes?
I was like, what's there, potatoes? But I remember getting off the plane there and being like, wow, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been in. And truly it was the best decision. I just immediately knew from my interactions with my teammates, my future teammates at the time, the people in the town, the scenery, that it was the right place for me for the next 4 or 5 years.
And I kind of want to get in. You get there, and things did not go as planned.
It did not.
So I know the story, but I mean, your world kind of turned upside down at 18 years old. You move all the way across to Boise State, and then your coach is no longer a coach.
Yep.
And certain situations happen, but you decide to stay. So what is that like?
Yeah, it was interesting, right? I mean, you go away to college thinking that it's like this, oh, I've got my coach here for the next 4 years. That person ends up being gone. We had an administrator traveling with us because we had no head coach and no coach. So that's like Dave Matter coming on the road.
That's scary.
With our tennis team, right?
That seems great.
Yeah, it was awesome. He took us to Vegas for regionals. I'll never forget it. Poor guy, because that's like a really long tournament. It's a week long. But yeah, I didn't know. I really didn't know what was going to happen from then. I didn't know if I was going to need to transfer. Would the new coach want me? Would he want any of us, right? Where would my teammates end up? A lot of concerns. And from my parents' perspective too, right? They're so far away. They just dropped their only child off at college, and now she doesn't have a coach. But things truly happen for a reason. My coach, Beck Rogar, was hired. He was the assistant on the men's side at the time. He ended up getting hired as our head coach, and he's still there, doing a great job, and he's really like the most kind human being I've ever met. So really everything happens for a reason. It ended up being an amazing 4 years. Nobody transferred out. We all stayed. Those are my lifelong friends. They were in my wedding, right? Like it just turned out to be a really great story.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants. Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants are great local spots to visit before or after all Mizzou home games. Addison's has 2 locations in Southwest and downtown Columbia and features over 20 beers on tap, including local brewers and, of course, their famous Nachos Bianco. So remember, before or after the game, stop by Addison's.
So at what point then, as you're competing as a student athlete in college, does it come into your mind that maybe you want to, well, first you go to law school, but was there still a thought at the time that you would want to have a future in college athletics?
When I was in college, no. Like I didn't even know what the job opportunities were in college athletics, right? I think I was just going about my business, like going to practice, going to weights, competing on the weekends, like not really even knowing what the options were, the career choices were in college sports. But it was really when I was about to graduate that I think, like, from my experience having a major NCAA violation and all that stuff, like, we really got to know our compliance office on a super personal level, because they were always providing, like, additional rules education, and our coach was, like, really vigilant about staying within the rules there. So I think from that I realized that this other career was an option, and I wasn't sure before I went to law school if I was going to dive into that, or was I going to go be a prosecutor, or what path was I really going to take. But I knew that at that point it was an option.
So law school was always something you wanted to do. You just didn't know what you wanted to do with your law degree.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And I just found this out, which is interesting because I've known you for over 2 years now. I didn't realize you were a volunteer assistant for a little while. So did it ever come into your minds, like, I want to coach tennis, or you did that, it was fun, I'm going to law school, I do not want to coach?
Yeah, so I graduated after 4 years, and then my very best friend, Sandy Vo, she was our volunteer assistant coach because she was out of eligibility but still had another semester left to graduate, so she kind of stuck around and did that, and then she had gotten a job and moved to Boston. So I was still in Boise studying for the LSAT. I was, like, teaching tennis at a country club and just doing some odds and ends there. And, then I was like, hey, Beck, like, I could help with the team too. I have this extra time. And so he took me on. I was the volunteer coach. I think another, like, glimpse into the behind the scenes of college athletics, right? That probably led to that decision, but you get to see it from a different perspective, from the coach's lens of what they go through every day. Really the operation side, because I was you can't do anything recruiting wise, so I was helping with, like, scheduling and reaching out to compliance and making sure our hours were logged the right way, and just a lot of the paperwork side. So I got to learn a lot about the business through that, and it was a good experience, but I didn't want to get into college coaching. Patience is not, like, one of my strengths, I would say.
Really?
No.
You don't say.
So
That's breaking news here on the podcast.
I know, you learn something new every day.
Yeah, no.
So how do you decide then that you're going into the big bad Southeastern Conference for the next chapter of your life and career?
Yeah, I picked LSU because I was looking at major named law schools, right? I had this idea in my mind that it needed to be ranked at a certain level, but also, like, it was way closer to home. I felt like if I went to Baton Rouge, then I could at least drive home to see my family instead of getting on a plane. So I felt like whatever the decision was, whether I was going to go into criminal law or I was going to go into sports, like, it was going to be a name on a resume where people would be like, I know exactly what that is. That was kind of like the draw for me.
And now, talk about your experience at both Southern Miss and Louisiana. You start interning there. Is that, like, you got your first taste and you were kind of like, I'm stuck, this is what I want to do? What was that experience like?
Actually, it started before then. After my first semester of law school, I was like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, I'm just not sure. And
law school wasn't for you?
Well, not law school, but just, like, do I really want to practice law? Be a regular practicing attorney. I wasn't sure, right? I was still trying to figure out what else there was, and knew at the same time I was feeling like this void in my life, like I had left something behind that I was missing, right? Being part of a team and all those things. So I decided to reach out to every university within a, driving distance from Baton Rouge to see if I could come intern with them for the summer while we were not in classes. So actually, Andrea Benna, who works here, she was one of the people that I talked to. Not necessarily driving distance, but I wanted to pick her brain. She was in the compliance office here, and she gave me, like, a lot of great advice and good insight at the time. So fast forward, I had a connection at Southern Miss because Scott Garrison was running that compliance office. He's running the compliance office at Gonzaga now. He had interned at Boise State when I was a student athlete there. So he said, yep, come on board. So I moved down to Hattiesburg for the summer and interned there for 3 months and loved it. I loved the interaction with the coaches. I loved the collaboration of the staff, and it just felt like I was home again.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You also met your husband there, your now husband.
Yes, I did.
So tell us about Corey a little bit and meeting him in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, Corey, one of a kind human being. We met in Baton Rouge in 2015, I guess. We had both moved there in the same month and became friends through a mutual friend that also played college tennis. He was a student athlete, played baseball at West Florida. I'm going to shout out his national champion because you said that I was a Hall of Famer, which is like nothing in comparison to winning a national championship in baseball. So it's a great thing for him. And yeah, we met there, started dating in 2016, and then got married just in 2022 recently. But, you know, I think that anyone's significant other in this career path, they have to be an absolute all-star, right?
Yeah.
Because they're really committed to this. It's a family investment. It's not just a one-person investment. And he has been committed ever since I was like, this is what I really want to do. You know, he moved to Syracuse with me when I worked there. And then he really believed in me when we took the job here at Mizzou. And he's just been like my number one supporter. So I'm really grateful for all that he's done.
And I have to give Corey a shout out because he never bats an eye when I walk through the front door. He always lets me come over and hang out, whether it's watching sports or Barbie or whatever the heck we're doing. And so I'm appreciative that he's allowed, you know, he doesn't ever, he's just like, oh, hey. I'm like, oh, just me again.
So Syracuse was your first full-time job
It was
after law school. And at that point, are you committed mentally like, okay, I want to get back into college athletics, but use this law degree in some capacity?
Yep, absolutely. I took my first full-time job. You know, the goal for me was at the time to be either an SWA or an AD somewhere. And I knew that, you know, you have to move around a bit in this profession to grow and learn more and take those steps. So that was the first one. I went on my interview, and again, like the connections of college athletics, right? Like Syracuse, the person running that compliance office was my director of compliance when I was at Boise State. So things kind of like come full circle, right? So he gives me the first opportunity to work there full time. I meet like my best friends working at Syracuse. And then the Mizzou job opens, and I remember so Corey is a consultant, and he was working in New York City when we were living in Syracuse, and then he would come back on the weekends. And I remember it was like really late at night, and he sends me the Mizzou job, and he's like, I think that we should go for this. And I was like, okay, like let's do it. And then we ended up here, and we love it.
Did you like living in New York? Or, I mean, obviously you live in Missouri, you kind of lived all over the place now.
Truly.
So did you have as someone from the Northeast?
Yeah.
The falls are the best. So I don't know if you got to experience.
Well, the fall is beautiful, and so is the summer. Honestly, like New York had wonderful things about it. I loved how outdoorsy it was. We were obviously in upstate, so we weren't in the city, but I loved that you could get to the city super easily. Mm-hmm. Again, the people make the place, in my opinion, and I met unbelievable people there. So my two very best friends, Justin DeTola is working at Cal, and Tony Hong's working at Harvard. So you kind of stay connected to these people, and they remain in your life forever, right? But you take these different jobs and move to these different places, and you meet these people that are supposed to be part of your life. And I think that was my biggest takeaway from living in Syracuse.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Socket Fiber. Socket Fiber is now available, the fastest, most reliable internet combined with local service and simple billing. Contact Socket today for voice, data, and internet services for your home and businesses. 1-800-SOCKET-3 or visit socket.net.
Yeah.
And you're in compliance here. That's where you got your start.
Yep.
Was that something that you thought, okay, I'll make a career out of this, or were you thinking, hey, you know, there can be some upward mobility here and have a different position at some point?
Yeah, I was thinking that I took the job as an assistant director of compliance at Mizzou. I was doing eligibility and recruiting. I thought that I was going to eventually run a compliance office somewhere. I didn't know that would necessarily be here. Truly, I thought I'd probably have to make a couple moves to move on and grow. The the career path change was unexpected, but welcomed, and I've learned so much. And I think what you don't get to see maybe as much is the external side when you're working in
Right.
compliance, like more internal. You get the occasional like interp question from marketing or fundraising or whatever, but you don't live it day to day.
Yeah.
So I think it's been a good growth for my career.
And what something that's unique, I don't know if it's unique to compare to other schools, but our senior staff, we have so many former student athletes from the college level. And I just think it has to provide so much insight and experience. And obviously I'm not one of them, but you are. And we have 2 football players. We have a couple baseball players,
Women's basketball player.
women's basketball player, of course, and a tennis player. And I've just got to think naturally all of that experience and know-how, you've lived the lives that our student athletes have lived, different eras for some of us, but I think that just has to pay off in ways that maybe we don't see every day, but there's real value there, I would think.
Yeah, I won't speak for the rest of them, but from my perspective, I think if you had a great student athlete experience, that's kind of why we're doing what we do, right?
Yeah.
I want to give back to the student athletes at Mizzou. I want them to have an unbelievable experience. It's kind of why I'm coming to work every day, right? I want to make sure that their experience is better than mine even was, right? So all of our decisions, I think, are values based, and just with that at the forefront of keeping them in mind when we make our choices.
Yep. So you have a daughter. She's
do.
just turned 1. She's the cutest little girl ever. How has becoming a mom just maybe changed your perspective on things? It was, you've had a set plan for life. You have Corey. It's the 2 of you, and now you have Margaret. So,
Yeah.
what has it been to be like? What has it been like to be a mom?
It's been the greatest thing ever. I mean, truly, and I know everyone says that when they have kids, but it's an undescribable feeling when you have a child. And I think that every day my number one priority is how do I make her life better? I don't just think about, Corey and I anymore, right? She's the main part of that. And I think the best part of having her in this world is I look forward to her growing up surrounded by unbelievable role models. I think sports is so important in our kids' lives as they grow up, and she gets to see a group of hardworking people. They're making the right decisions. They're working for what they earn every day, and then she gets to come in the office, right, and run around and fold T-shirts
Oh,
and
yeah.
hang out with Will Matter and Ella Grunenwald and all the people, and just be part of this family. And I couldn't ask for a better environment for her to grow up in. So I'm thankful for that.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. She's going to be a pro. Will Matter pro T-shirt roller. So
she's got a lot to learn.
She's got
so.
some stuff to learn.
It reminds me, thinking of your daughter, the drive back from the Cotton Bowl late at night.
Oh,
we're on that
gosh.
bus on the highway.
Horrible.
And it was horrible, but I also, in the moment, appreciated kind of the family atmosphere that we had, because we were all on there with
Great.
our families. Nikki, I think you were on a different bus.
I was on a different bus. My
But-
mom was asleep next to me, so
Yes.
That was not the experience on our bus, I'll let you know, Nikki.
Margaret was a little tired. Well, and
It was
you,
midnight.
You guys were sitting in front of me, and I had my phone out, and I was counting down the miles. So I would kind of whisper.
Dave, how much more time is left?
Every mile or minute, I'd whisper to Morgan, I'm like, 8 more minutes to the hotel, 7 more
Can we go
minutes.
faster?
We're doing okay. So I don't know, something about that. I hated it for you, but I've been there before, so
Yeah.
I remember what those days and moments were like. But I thought we were all trying to pitch in and
No, you're
and
so
just
right. It was great, and honestly, I got no grief for it. I never heard
no.
no.
anything about it, and honestly, it's funny because we do not keep her up past her bedtime ever, but this was the one moment where we're like, okay, you don't know how often you go to the Cotton Bowl, right? This is going to be a great family experience. And it was. She was so awesome through the whole game, but wow, she was tired when we got on
Yeah,
that bus.
I was too. So I was probably just as cranky. So.
Yeah.
I think that it's just been, for me, it's been fun. My cousins and my sister, we're in the phase where we're all 25-ish. I have one, my cousin has one little baby, but that's the only baby. So it's been really fun the past year to spend time with the baby. And I've just loved seeing her personality. And what's been so funny is seeing your personality and Corey's personality in her. And I just think back when you were pregnant, you wouldn't sit still. And now she doesn't sit still. And so anytime you're she's just so active, I'm because you walked You didn't ever sit down for 9 months, so she's just used to moving.
And she did How Can I Help You? if you'll
She did.
remember.
How Can I Help You?
So,
I do have
she's
the
a
cutest
star.
picture of her in How Can I Help You. So.
She'll probably end up doing it next fall too. So just stay tuned, people.
And
for-
once she starts talking, we'll just get her on the podcast.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, yeah. She'll be guest number 55. Should we go into rapid fire
Absolutely.
or all
This
right?
is your part. Go for it.
Oh, my part.
Your part. No pressure.
Okay, rapid fire should be just quick little hitters.
Okay.
Favorite place to eat in Columbia?
Oh, 44 Canteen.
Now, I thought you were going to say something else, but
You thought I
like
was
it.
going to say Culver's.
I did, which I need pot. So
Dave's
the story
laughing.
about that.
Great fast food.
The
Dave.
story about that is that we went to, when it was your baby shower, it was like one of those games, and one of the questions was favorite place to eat in town. I was like, I know this. I was like one of the only people. Everyone was like, this is where you like to eat. And I said, of course she likes to eat there. I knew that.
Okay, it's great. And the secret is you got to get the kids' meal.
Yeah.
There
Because
you
then
go.
you get ice cream.
That's right. That's right.
Favorite book?
Oh, that's a tough one. So my favorite book is All the Light We Cannot See, and they recently made this into a show on Netflix too, which I was actually really impressed with. But it's like a story about World War II. It's a
Do you-
love story.
Why is it your favorite book? I know the answer to this.
So it's kind of a personal connection, right? When I was in Boise State, the year that I took off working before law school, I was nannying for like a bunch of different families, and actually Anthony Dorr and his family was one of those people that I was working for. So I remember walking in the first time and seeing all these books everywhere, and I was like, I guess I have to read it. It says it's a bestseller, so
Well, that it is. Dream tennis opponent.
This was my question. But
This
you can
was
ask
Dave's
it.
question.
wow. Well,
My
I've
thing, Dave's
played-
question.
Anybody, any era, alive, dead.
That's
Anyone.
interesting. So I've played Sloane Stevens before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was that a zoo day?
Was it a what?
A zoo day?
No.
Wow.
Wow.
We were 12. She wasn't like
The same
quite.
person.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's
So it was a zoo day for her?
zoo day for her.
Nice.
Look at you go.
Yeah. We were like 12 again, Nikki. So
Well, you
Hey.
didn't have to say
Perspective.
you were 12. You could have just said it was zoo day for her.
it was a zoo day for her. Now, though, I mean, I would have to say Serena because I think she's been transformational for the sport. And if it wasn't her, then it would be Billie Jean King, because the same sort of thing, right? Like, it's one of the only sports where women are making almost the same amount of money as men in the sport. And I think that that's just unbelievable, uncomparable.
Can I add a question? Okay. Dream mixed doubles partner.
Wow. Pete Sampras, probably. I think he was just like an American icon.
Stoic.
Stoic. Well
Probably,
respected.
probably very organized.
Probably. Comes off that way, doesn't he?
Brings his own notes to interviews and
Yeah.
podcasts.
Oh yeah,
Probably
you have
does.
notes, and we didn't even touch on this. Morgan walks in and sets down her little folder with notes. I said, "Are you going to quiz us? What's going on here?"
Taking
You know,
notes
it
on
wouldn't
us.
be a podcast with me if I didn't bring notes.
Well,
so.
what are your notes?
It's just like some things I needed to remember in case you asked me certain questions.
Well, enlighten us.
No.
You did all the work.
You have your notes.
Well, yeah, it's my job to have notes.
Mine too.
Okay,
All
back to the
right.
questions, Nikki.
I know, rapid fire is not always rapid. Dream home renovation project. Big home reno. You guys love a little project.
We love a project.
Yeah.
Actually, so we just did one.
I know.
We just like repainted our living room, and by we, I very much mean Corey.
Ah.
Repainted our living room, but it turned out so good. We went with this like really dark green. Anyway, so that's like was the dream reno, right? I just wanted to make that a homey and cozy space.
Grandpa Green.
Grandpa Green.
All right, last question. Your smoothie bowl order.
Oh, okay. The hazy cocoa from Smoothie King. Add peanut butter.
There you go. There you have
Sounds
it.
like lunch.
Oh, I'm getting a smoothie bowl for lunch.
Okay. All
The
right.
best.
I don't know if they're a sponsor.
Sorry, podcast.
Sorry.
Producer Steve. Yeah, he said they're not. Sorry.
All right. What else we got?
I think that's it.
We got to end with our tradition. Before
oh,
that,
yeah,
can I
always
just
forget.
I get sentimental at the end of some of these, but
He's gonna cry.
I'm not gonna cry. That was last week with Mike. No, I want to thank you for, I've been here 6 months, and I've told Nikki this before, and like I think some people kind of just assumed I knew my way around and knew everything there was to know about working inside, and I clearly didn't. but you were right there to help me out the whole way. And the three of us, I don't know what it is. I think we've just kind of developed this cool friendship, and we're very different. I mean, we're in our 20s, 30s, and 40s.
We cover a lot of ages.
We do, yeah. We don't catch all of our references because of those big gaps, but for whatever reason it works. And this has been an interesting week, and I thought it would be a little cathartic to bring you in here and do this, and I'm glad you stepped up because, as we mentioned when we opened this today, we weren't sure we were going to do a podcast today or this week, but we are moving forward, and nobody could have been better to have in here with us than Morgan.
You guys
Morgan's
are
the best.
I'm not
So,
sure about that. But Dave, I'm sorry that I didn't show you where the printer
I was going to say, are you the one that showed him where the printer was finally? No. So we're still looking for who showed him the
that was.
I'm
printer.
not
It
sure. I
wasn't
think
me.
I might have just found
I
it
taught
on
him how to do QR codes, and let me tell you, that was interesting.
I brought him to Matsy for our first meeting and definitely hit a curb on the way there. So
I
that
don't
was
remember
my
that at all.
Moment with Dave Batter.
Oh, well, I hit a curb with Morgan in the car 2 weeks ago, and we almost tipped over, so it was not great. But, yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks for
guys.
coming on.
Thanks
We
for
love
having
having you.
You're not done.
Oh, my gosh. Why do I always
I
forget?
don't know.
Okay.
So for
I
the
have-
listeners, this is the tradition at the end.
Yep.
We
So,
have photos to put on our
Coming up there.
yep, you'll
our
come up
board
here.
of fame. What do we call it?
So, I have 2 photos of Morgan.
Definitely not picking that one.
I have Morgan's headshot, which is really nice. And then I have Morgan's high school senior. It looks like her senior. It's from August of 2010. So I
Hall of
prefer,
Famer.
I think this one's the future Hall of Famer. I prefer that one. This one's the Hall of Famer. So you get to choose. Here, I have a little, let me grab a.
We have an extra.
Is there?
Yeah.
You got one.
Thank you. I'm going right by Dave here.
How about that?
She's picking sides.
I'm breaking the board.
That's all right.
Good, we're just
That's
moving
good.
it.
That's good. We're
Thanks,
we're
Tim.
unpolished here. It's just kind of
So I'm not going to
just go
take
with the
it.
flow.
I'm keeping this. I'm putting this in my office. I'm just going to pretend like she didn't pick sides here, but that's okay. We'll just.
Well,
I'm
we
not
need to
gonna-
balance it out because everyone picks your side. Apparently,
It was looking a little sad.
it
over
was.
there.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
guess you're right. Fine, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Well, thank you again for taking the time to come. We've harassed you enough, and so we appreciate it.
Thank you both. It's been an honor. Thanks for having me.
Always.
Thank you.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Raceline Alternative Energy. Raceline Alternative Energy is working for a better future in rural Missouri. They are working to restore millions of acres of native prairie plants, which can be harvested to produce highly valuable clean energy called prairie power. Visit them online at racelinealternativeenergy.com.
I'm so glad we got her to come on. I think the world of her as a coworker, but also as a friend. So I'm glad we were
Yeah.
able to harass her and get her on
She's great.
and hear about her
I'm
story.
still kind of shocked that we pulled it off.
I know. Yeah. And she kind of didn't come on kicking and screaming, which I think I'm more shocked about that.
Yeah, and now like nobody has an excuse to say no now.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to Coach Gates the other day. I'm like, "You're coming on the podcast," and he's like, "I know, I'll be in there."
Yeah. Coach Drink told me too when he dropped off donuts.
And
He was
Morgan
like,
can do it.
I want
The
to come
ultimate
on.
insider who doesn't want any attention.
I know, and that's the thing. I mean, she's again. You heard her story. She's outstanding. She's so hardworking. She's so humble. But she doesn't want attention, and she deserves more attention than she gets just because she's so
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. It's one of those kind of, I don't want to say thankless jobs because she gets a lot of thanks from the people that appreciate what she does, but it's not an external job. Her name's not out there, on Twitter or social media or anything like that or press releases because she's the insider and she keeps a lot of things moving along, and a credit to her. Frankly, this week has had some challenges and because she's so good at what she does, the train has stayed on the tracks.
Yeah.
And I credit a lot of that to our team, but Morgan gets a lot of credit too.
No, absolutely. So,
What else is going on? We can finally say the black and gold game, the spring football game, is on March 16th,
at 1 p.m.
1 p.m. at the stadium.
Yeah.
Mark your calendars. There may be a podcast pregame presence,
Oh yeah, a little live action.
live action. Is that what we're calling it?
Yeah.
Live, taped live. We'll be there on the concourse, hopefully. We're still
Hopefully,
working
yeah.
out the details. Weather permitting, it's going to be a beautiful day. The
I'm
forecast is already out.
I'm saying that it's going to be nice out. It's going to be 65 and sunny, one of those nice warm weather March days.
I think we are owed some great weather.
Yeah, but it's also been nice out recently.
It
I went
has.
for almost a 2-mile walk yesterday. It was really nice.
Did you really?
Yep,
I felt really bad because I came outside for the first time in like 12 hours, 9 hours, and I forgot that it was so nice
You
out.
did ask me if it was nice out. I said, oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Stuck inside, eating lunch in the break room yesterday. Continued the tradition.
So,
who joined me?
Who?
Morgan.
Wow.
Yeah.
She joined you in the break room. If you ever are looking for Dave during the day, to anyone who's in Mizzou Arena, he's probably in the break room somewhere between 12 and 1:30ish.
I'm
He
the
stops
only
for
one.
lunch. So Sam Munson, and he's our student engagement, assistant director of student engagement.
Yep.
He was eating his lunch at his little cubicle desk. And I said, well, why don't you eat in the break room? And he said, no, I don't want to do that. So he will not be joining you. He said it just feels too small in there. I said, oh, well, Dave sits there.
I don't know. It's kind of my thing. I like to socialize with people that come in, use the microwave, get some coffee.
Yeah, like, do you just say, hey, how are you? What are you eating?
You know what I did this morning? So I put some yogurt in the fridge a couple days ago, and now I went back and I can't remember which one is mine.
Oh,
So
well,
I chose because there's like 3 of them. And they're all the same, and I think one's mine, but I don't want to take somebody else's. So what's the etiquette there? As someone who has not worked in an office in a very long time until this job.
I think that what you need to start doing is putting a sticky note with your name on it, or like an initial.
Yeah, that's
Maybe.
a good thought. I wish we had like an in-house PA system, and I could be like, "Attention, Mizzou Arena workers, whose strawberry yogurt is this? Because I am hungry."
Yeah, I don't know if that will go over well, but sure, we'll get
It also, I couldn't tell. It looked like it might be expired. It said,
your yogurt or their yogurt.
well, the one that the mystery one. I didn't eat it. It either said January or June, and I'm like, it wouldn't already say June, would it?
I don't know what kind of yogurt you're getting.
Well, I don't. It's like Greek yogurt, the high
I
protein
think
kind.
it stays. Oh, the protein. I can't with the counting of the protein.
Yeah, but so it was either January or June, and if it was January, that is some old yogurt.
So I don't. I'm weird about expiration dates. Like if I think something's expired or going to expire, I'm out. Like I'm not gonna. My dad will Google, how long does this last past expiration? No, that's not how I live. That's not my world. You won't catch me doing that. So. I would throw your yogurt away. Try it
I don't know if
tomorrow.
it's mine.
We'll just do a good service and throw the January expired
It
yogurt
might be
out.
June.
Well, it's one yogurt.
Oh, and here's the thing: we didn't think we had anything to talk about.
I know. I did want to give you an update from last week because I passed Ellis Library this Friday.
The Ellis Library.
The Ellis Library. So I now know where it is. I can
Okay.
confirm.
Did you go in?
Well, no, it was like literally 11:30 on Friday night because I was driving
Oh.
back from Zoo to the Lou.
You're way back. Yeah, you were stuck on the highway.
Stuck? No, I didn't because I refused to get stuck on the highway. So
What'd you do?
Oh, I got off. I figured out how to get off. Katie White, she's assistant director of creative video. She drove, so thankful for her driving. But I navigated, and I said, as soon as I saw
That's a
traffic,
challenge.
no, I'm great. On the way there, I said, get off. As soon as I saw the traffic, I said, get off. So we took the service road, but then everyone else decided to also take the service road. So then I navigated her very much so off of the highway.
Okay.
That was the part where she said, can we please not do that because the roads are covered in snow? I said, very fair. Sure. Sounds good. But by doing that, we ended up being able to skip all of the traffic and then just hop back on the highway. It did take us a long time. And then
Yeah.
coming back, I also said we're not getting stuck, which thank God we did not do that. We went towards Hannibal and like around.
Right.
And then smooth sailing.
I remember somebody about 1 p.m. last Friday telling you, maybe you shouldn't go. You might get stuck on the highway. And you're like, what do you know?
Was that person you?
Might have been. I don't know.
Yeah. We didn't get stuck, so that person was wrong. But
Okay,
it just took
well,
me
he usually
3
is.
hours.
But you
So-
saw a great event.
Oh,
How
it was
was it?
great.
That
It
was
was
good?
great. Yeah, it was a fantastic event. I'm glad that we did actually get to go and made it there. Zoo to the Lou was awesome. Our team did really well. We had a perfect 10 on the bars, so that was cool to see in person. So I'm glad we went. We got there safely.
Speaking of going on the road, putting together dates for the caravan tour,
Oh yeah.
We've seen some dates and locations. Those
Mm-hmm.
aren't finalized yet, but hopefully we'll have those out to the public pretty soon, I would think, because it'll be in
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the spring. Lots of stops around the state. It's been kind of a staple the last couple of years in this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to a few when I was on the media side. I'm really looking forward to being part of the show, this time on the inside.
I was going to ask, where have you been?
I've gone to the St. Louis ones.
Okay.
And a couple more, I think. The St. Louis ones have been in different locations, and they were both awesome. The one out in the Blues rink, and then the one at Ballpark Village last year was really cool too.
Yeah, to be honest, it is a lot of work, but I think it's so rewarding, and it's
Oh, yeah.
something I genuinely enjoy doing. I haven't the past 2 years gotten to go to as many come home tours just because I've been working with the softball program and we've had games and just different
Yeah.
things. But I'm excited to hopefully get to go out to some places I haven't been yet. It's also good, I think, for someone who's not from the state of Missouri. I get to see Missouri.
Sure.
So that's been cool. I think I went out to Adrian 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I would have probably never gone to Adrian, Missouri, so it was cool to get to
I
go
think
out there.
Mizzou Storytellers podcast should have some kind of element in the caravan tour. What do you think?
I agree.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
So,
Might be something some people are thinking about.
yeah, if you like that idea, maybe just let us know, and then
Yeah.
that's more ammunition for us to say, hey, we should do this.
Absolutely. Mizzou baseball gets started at home next week, Tuesday against SEMO. Carrick Jackson's team had a good opening weekend. They're on the road again this weekend. Lots going on. Not a lot has been happening at home lately, but that's about to change. Now we're in that crossover season, and the weather, hopefully, I'm not going to knock on wood because it's really loud when you do that on this table, but hopefully the weather holds up, and baseball and softball will be out there before we know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
What do you think? Have we covered enough?
I think we have.
Are we going to end with our
Yeah, your thing.
my thing? Everyone has a beautiful story to tell as long as you ask the right questions and are willing to listen. This is Mizzou Storytellers.
I'm Nikki Berry.
And I'm Dave Matter.
We'll see you next time.